Welcome, everybody. This is Critical Thinking in Writing and Philosophy. My name is Dr. Alex Scavone. So I just want to outline really what we're going to be looking at here in this first lecture, the text, the book that you're supposed to be reading as we move throughout the semester, how an online class works for those of you that this will be your first fully online class. Then we'll take a look at some parts of the syllabus that require note, assessments, how you're going to be getting grades and so forth. And then we'll look at the expectations that I have for you in this class and what you can expect from me. From there, we'll look at the grading criteria that I'm going to be focusing on with your writing assignments. I apologize in advance. This is a writing intensive course. We are going to get you to practice and hone your skills in writing so that when you take upper division classes, you will be ready for the challenge that awaits. After that, we'll just kind of look at the theme of this course. Each of these writing and critical thinking courses in philosophy have a particular theme. This one will be the philosophy of sex and love. So the main course that we're going to be reading from in this semester is Writing Philosophy, a Student's Guide to Reading and Writing Philosophy Essays. It's a rather small text, which I imagine you'll probably like, and it's got a lot of good information. And so it's important that you're keeping up with the readings. They are going to be very helpful as we move through the different stages of writing. Again, this course is going to be teaching you and helping you hone those skills in writing. And so we're going to be learning the different ins and outs, aspects, sections of papers that make a good piece, a good essay, good. There will also be supplemental materials as we go further on, PDFs that I'll provide in Canvas once we start looking at the actual philosophical kind of content, learning how to read philosophical arguments, learning how to express your own arguments. And while we're focusing our attention on writing and critical thinking within the realm of philosophy, this is going to transcend philosophy, transcend just this class. So you will be using these skills in almost every other class that you take. Philosophy, writing in philosophy is all about writing a persuasive argumentative essay. And persuasive argumentative essays are the majority of essays that you're going to be writing in academia. Very rarely do you write informational essays. You're always trying to include a thesis statement, you're trying to include an argument and persuade your reader to believe some assertion. And so, because this course is fully online, we'll be coming to class via signing in to Canvas, reading announcements. I'll be posting announcements throughout the semester, keeping you up to date with readings or keeping you aware of when things are going to be due. You'll also be expected to participate in discussions and taking quizzes, doing the assignments. All of those things are going to help you throughout this course, not just to get a good grade, but writing is a skill, something that is learned through practicing. So it's imperative that throughout this course, you're practicing and doing the assignments. The assignments are set up in a way where you're just going to be doing the same sort of thing over and over again, writing paragraphs, getting better at writing paragraphs so that when it comes time to write the research essay, you'll find it a bit easier, less challenging, less time consuming, and really have a clear understanding of what it is that you're going to be expected to do. And so Canvas is the platform that we're going to be using. Make sure you're familiarizing yourself with Canvas. On the front page, on the home page of the Canvas shell, there is a link to a tutorial. Please make sure you're going into that tutorial if you're unfamiliar with Canvas and playing around. Make sure that you're signing in. If you have questions about how to use Canvas, if you have questions about the class in general, email me. Make sure that you're taking a look at that syllabus in the link on the left-hand side, getting my contact information so that if you have questions or problems, you can easily reach me. One way I'm going to reach out to you is through announcements. I will be putting out announcements periodically, a couple times a week probably, just to keep you up to date, make sure that you know exactly what it is that's expected of you for that week, and to give you just little tips and tricks for success in this class and other classes that require writing and navigating Canvas. So one of the ways that you're going to be assessed in this class is through discussions. There'll be a few discussions primarily at the end of the semester when we start looking at the philosophical material. The discussions are going to be participatory based for the most part. I will provide you with a prompt and you will answer that prompt in roughly 250 words and then respond to two of your fellow classmates in 100 words each. And so assuming that you answer the initial prompt and respond to your fellow classmates, you will get the points for that discussion. It's a way that attendance and participation is graded. It's also a way to get those discussion points. Now, it's important that when you're doing these discussions, remember, it's imperative that you post your discussion, your first initial response to the question, early in the week. If you wait until later, then it'll make it difficult for others to respond to you. And so your first response should be in by Wednesday or Thursday at the latest, so that your fellow classmates will have something to respond to. So please make sure that you're doing those discussions. Philosophy is one of those subjects where discussions will actually help our understanding of the material. It helps us kind of get out of our own head and look at problems from other perspectives and find different solutions that we might not have thought about. You also have to take quizzes periodically. Quizzes are typically pretty short and just kind of testing your comprehension and understanding of the material that we're looking at. Your first quiz will be this week and it'll be on the syllabus. Make sure you're reading through the syllabus and knowing the different sections and what things are worth and what you should be doing. There's also going to be a course schedule at the end of the syllabus that lets you know important due dates and when everything's due and what you should be doing each week and so forth. One thing with the quizzes, make sure that you are taking them in one sitting. They are timed, and if you click away from the page or you close your computer or go away from your computer for a little while, the quiz will time you out. So please make sure when you start the quiz, finish it. And take notice of the timer. Each quiz will be 60 minutes long. There's usually only anywhere from 3 to 7 questions on it. They're pretty straightforward and simple just to kind of get you participating, get you familiar with some of the main points of the material that we're covering. One of the major parts of this class is going to be the assignments. The assignments are going to be short writing assignments, anywhere from 150 words to 350 words, depending on the topic and prompt. These assignments are meant for you to practice your skills at writing. One of the ways that we're going to be focusing our writing this semester is by breaking up essays into 3 parts: introductions, bodies, and conclusions. This should not be foreign to most of you, but this simple way of writing is difficult without practice. So we're going to practice each of these sections multiple times so that we become very familiar with how we should break up an essay. When we learn to write individual paragraphs, then writing papers becomes much easier, because instead of looking at the entire paper as one big project, which could be very daunting, we break that project up into little smaller manageable projects that are much easier to complete. And so when we realize that we're doing the same sort of thing in an introduction, that we're doing in a body, that we're doing in a conclusion, it will make writing those paragraphs easier, and then the paper as a whole easier. And so I will be providing prompts for each week. There's about 10 writing assignments this semester, and we will be using them as a way to practice our art. Writing is very much a skill that needs to be practiced. It's not something that we can just do automatically. We need to get better at it. We need to practice doing it. It's just like multiplication tables. You do the problems over and over and over again, and then you can do them without even thinking. Writing is no different. You practice repetitive writing the same type of paragraph over and over again, and then it just becomes easier. You start to find your own voice, and it becomes much more manageable. Now we're doing this to work up to a couple bigger essays. So there are going to be 2 research essays. They are persuasive essays that will be due in this class, each with a length no less than 1,500 words, so roughly 5 to 7 pages. And they are going to be essays regarding the topic of this course, which is sex or love, or both, depending on what your topic is. I will provide a few topics for you later in the semester. If you would like to choose something that's not listed, you are more than welcome to do so. In fact, it is encouraged for you to find something you are interested in. But whatever it is, it must be a topic that presents a question that needs answering. Because what you're going to be doing is writing a persuasive essay, which means you are going to have to include a thesis statement. It's going to have to incorporate arguments to prove that thesis statement. And that way, you are going to get practice writing these types of persuasive essays, which are largely the essays that you write in college. So any other classes that you may have after this, chances are when you write essays, they will have to be persuasive research essays, which means they will incorporate a thesis. You're not just summarizing information, you are presenting a case, you are trying to persuade the reader to believe X. And to do that, you will need to incorporate a thesis statement, an argument, and again, I will have some topics for you if you don't want to choose. But if you do later in the semester, please feel free to email me some of your suggestions. That way we can go over it together. I don't want you to just go out on a limb and just start writing an essay on a topic. One of the most difficult aspects of writing a good paper is coming up with a topic. You don't want to be too broad because you will have to write much more than required. You don't want to be too specific because then you will not write enough. So there's a fine line when it comes to the questions, when it comes to the thesis statements that you are going to need to choose in order to write your essays. So one thing I expect from you is participation. Make sure you're doing the discussions. Make sure you're turning in the assignments. Make sure that you're reading the book for the class. If you are keeping on top of your work, it'll be fairly easy to get through. I know that there's going to be a lot of writing, but again, the more you do it, the easier it gets. Put in a little bit of work now, and I promise you, the next 2 years writing papers is going to be a breeze. If you don't understand something, if you're having trouble, if you have writer's block, please keep an open line of communication. I don't know you're having problems if you don't communicate. If you express to me that you're having a difficult time, we can try and work together. Throughout the semester, I'll be holding Zoom sessions as office hours so that you can catch me via video if you need help on something. They're not mandatory, but for those of you that want that face-to-face help, I will be here each week providing those hours at differing times. So hopefully I can catch you all depending on what your schedule is. Also, if the times never happen to work for you, email me and we'll set up our own time to have a Zoom meeting or Skype even. Most of what you're going to be doing this week is going to involve the syllabus. Give the syllabus a read through. Make sure you are taking note of certain portions within that syllabus, contact information, assessment instructions, how you're supposed to be doing certain writings, what I expect from you on the essays and so forth. Also, the late policy. Anything that's submitted late in this class is going to incur a 20% deduction. And so it's important that you turn things in on time so that you're not having to deal with that or not having that 20% hurt your grade. That brings me to criteria I'm going to be looking at for grading papers. And I wish someone would have taught me what the criteria for papers was or is. So there's four main things that I and other teachers look for primarily when we read essays or read pieces of writing. The first is going to be clarity. Anytime that you write something, it's important that you are writing clearly, especially when it comes to philosophy. Philosophy is all about understanding the world. And it's difficult to understand the world when writing is difficult to understand or unclear or is riddled with mistakes or spelling errors. So it's very important that as you're writing clear, concise sentences, you're being consistent with your language. You're making sure that you know what question you're answering with your thesis statement and that you're clear about what your thesis statement is, along with the reasons to support it. The next criteria that I'm going to be focusing my attention on in this class is the presence of an argument. Remember, one of the most important aspects to writing is a clear thesis statement. And that thesis statement is an assertion that needs to be supported with evidence. Now, that thesis and the supporting evidence make up your argument. And it's important that that argument is clear because that's your goal. Your goal is to persuade your reader. And the way you persuade your reader is through argumentation. So if your reader does not know what your argument is, then we've got an issue. You want to make sure that your argument is clear, that you have a strict and precise thesis statement, so your reader knows exactly what you're talking about and can be persuaded by your argument. Now, it's not enough to just have an argument. It's also important that that argument is a good one. And so one of the aspects of this course that we're going to be going through is a critical thinking portion. And the critical thinking portion will help us learn to create and evaluate arguments so that we can look at an argument and determine whether it's a good one or a bad one, or we can create an argument and have the confidence to know if it's a good one or a bad one. Having a good, clear argument is important for the persuasiveness of your essay. You can have a very clear argument, but it nonetheless not persuade the reader because you've made mistakes, you've incorporated fallacies, It's just a bad argument. And so we want clear arguments, but we want clear, good arguments even more. Now, the last criteria is an important one. And that criteria is the originality or difficulty of your writing. It's not enough to make a good argument, but that argument has to warrant your attention. There has to be a purpose for that argument. If you were to simply argue that you are mortal, and the reason that you're mortal is because you're human and all humans are mortal, that by itself is a very good, clear, understandable argument. The only problem is it's not really relevant. It's not really interesting. It doesn't warrant our attention. It's rather boring, and frankly, it's just obvious. This is the difference between a B paper and an A paper. I've had students come to me and say, I've done everything that you've asked, I've hit all the check marks, but I still got a B. And the reason that B's and A's are typically separated is because A's are more difficult and have originality. Think of writing a paper like a diving competition. It wouldn't be very worthwhile for a diver in the Olympics to jump off the diving board and just do a dive. Instead, you want to do multiple flips and spins and make your dive as difficult as possible. Because even if you're doing a difficult dive and you come up short, you're rewarded for trying. The same thing goes when you write a paper. When you write a paper, your argument shouldn't be obvious. It should be creative. It should be difficult. It should be original. It should be not obvious. And so when you're doing that, it is more exciting. It's more worth your time. And even though you may come up short in a difficult original argument, it shows that you understand the material more so by being able to take that original standpoint. And so when we're writing, not only do we want good, clear arguments, but we want good, clear arguments that are imaginative, that make us excited, that are interesting. And so throughout this course, it's important that when you're answering questions, when you're comparing and contrasting things, when you're writing your essays, you were thinking of something interesting or imaginative. And you were asserting that and defending it with reasons in a way that is interesting and warrants our time. Now, I'm going to be talking about this much more throughout the course, but it's important to keep these 4 factors in your mind because they're going to be the criteria by which most every paper that you write are graded. Lastly, going over the theme. So the theme for this class is love and sex. And so we'll be looking at these 2 phenomena from different perspectives and in different ways. We might look at the characteristics of love, what it is that makes love love. What is the definition of love? We're going to look at the irreplaceability and fungibility of love. If I were to replace your romantic partner with an identical romantic partner, would you love that identical copy just as much? Maybe, maybe not. Is there something more? We'll also look at pornography and fidelity, whether or not looking at pornography should be or ought to be considered cheating. and just sex and love as they relate to one another. Does love always need to appear with sex? Should love always appear with sex? Are they exclusive? Are they inclusive? What about the types of love? Can we love a romantic partner? Can we love a parent or child? What about a pet, a friend? These are going to be some questions that we're asking throughout this course, and will make up some of the readings that we'll be doing in the latter half of the class. Hopefully, you'll find this theme, these topics, interesting and exciting. I know they certainly are for me. It's something that we all experience, something that we all question and tackle from time to time. But this time we're going to be doing it from the academic perspective. And we're going to hold up some of our understandings of the world when it comes to love and sex to fire and see whether or not we have a maybe good handle on it, or whether or not some of our thinking is fallacious. So I'm looking forward to this class. I hope you are too. Remember, if you have any questions, shoot me an email. Look out for more lectures and more content as it gets populated throughout the weeks, and have a good week.